Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth installment of Sunday Skate Hour. I'm your host Andrew, aka Funeral Burgundy, aka handing them a freaking packet, yo. This is a weekly podcast posted every Sunday morning so you can sit back, relax, and start the day off right by listening to me talk. Today is a very special episode because we will be doing a double review of the two Zach Cregger films we have so far. First, we'll go over Barbarian, and then we'll be doing a breakdown and review of Weapons, and following it up and rounding out the show later on with our weekly segments, the Hardwood Report and the Turf Report, my NBA and NFL discussion segments respectively. Before we get started, I do want to thank everyone for the love on the Peach episode. I definitely want to get more guests on moving forward, and I'm going to make sure the mic quality isn't as bad next time too. So if you have any interest in being a guest on the program, drop a comment below, email me at funeralburgundy@gmail.com, or hit me up on any of my socials that are on the screen right now. So now, without further ado, we're going to start by doing a couple years late recap of Barbarian, because I had never seen it before and decided watching it before Weapons would be a good choice. So before we get into spoilers for a movie that came out 3 years ago, this is my Letterboxd review for the boys back home who still haven't seen it. I gave the movie 2.5 stars and said, a lot I like, a lot I don't like. It feels kind of disjointed at times and pacing is kind of weird towards the middle and end, but I'm excited for Weapons. Hashtag whitest kids you know. Now before we proceed, I'm going to give a tiny spoiler warning. We will be talking about a 3-year-old movie, so if you don't want any spoilers, go watch Barbarian on Netflix before they remove it, then come back here. Also, before we talk about Barbarian and Weapons both, there's going to be some mentions of really fucked up weird shit, so like trigger warning for basically like everything vile and nasty, because it's kind of in both. Now to start us off, Barbarian is a movie that in the most unfortunate way left me wanting so much more. The first act is phenomenal, and the chemistry between Bill Skarsgård's Keith and Georgina Campbell's Tess is incredible. They have such a believable, awkward energy that two random people that have never met each other would have. Keith at first we think might be like the antagonist, but we quickly and really unceremoniously find out that he's just another victim. And we say goodbye to Bill Skarsgård pretty early in the film, which makes me sad because I do love Bill Skarsgård. This also sets us up for the unpredictability of Cregger's movies that will come back during Weapons, but unfortunately leave soon after this second act. A large majority of the time, you're sitting there watching these movies, wondering what could possibly come next, and it's almost never what you expect, besides in the instance of the rest of this movie after the second act. We're left with Tess and Justin Long's AJ for the rest of the movie, which I gotta say, kinda sucks. Tess goes from being a grounded, relatable presence in the first act to one of the most plot-obedient horror protagonists I've seen in a while. She consistently almost makes the right decision, but then changes course in ways that feel less like human behavior and more like the script yanking her into the next scene. And AJ is just all around bad, and that is the point of his character, to be like entertainingly shitty. But he's an actor that just got told by his manager that there's an article about him raping someone he had worked with, which he later admits to at a bar being a kind of like sex pest, I wore her down kind of thing. And it almost feels like we had glimmers of him like kind of trying to possibly redeem himself just for him to fall back into being shitty again, before we ultimately get what I think is becoming a theme in Cregger's movies with a major gore scene in the finale that absolutely decimates one of the shittier or shittiest characters. The whole plotline with the old guy and the incest, it just sucked. It was gross, it was horrible. They had to do something to explain the monster in the basement, but there wasn't enough world building for me, honestly. Just with one scene of him going to the store and then seeing him later on decrepit in bed before he shoots himself. And it's weird because AJ reacts to that guy being an insane, horrible, incestual rapist freak in a way right after we find out he's also an abuser that is just like really strange, and it has some very strange themes around it in terms of comparison, and you'd think maybe that it would wake him up to his guilt about what he's done and make him change for the better, but it doesn't. He doesn't get better, and the only character that makes it out at the end is Tess after killing the monster, after it kills AJ. One of my biggest issues with this movie is that Zach Cregger trades ambiguity for shock explanation, and for me the world building never really earns it. So the movie's moral architecture, bad men get gored, lands, but the story logic doesn't, which is something that we're going to see repeated in Weapons, which is like kind of using gore as a moral punctuation in a way. But all in all, I think Barbarian was a fun but unfortunately forgettable 2.5 star out of 5 experience, perfectly mid and perfect for a group of people to watch or to show to your friend when you guys want to watch a horror movie, preferably around Halloween time, which is coming up. Now, on to my review of weapons, which I have a much better and more desirable view on, thankfully. But first, just like with Barbarian and every movie before it, we'll start with a spoiler-free review for the boys back home who haven't seen it yet. I gave it 4 stars and said, one of the wackiest things I've ever seen, an original horror movie that for the most part sticks the landing and had me captivated for about 80% of the runtime. Now, before we proceed, I will give a full-chested spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Do not continue watching if you have not seen Weapons yet. Now, I do want to start this off negative because there's so little to be negative about, thankfully, and I want to get it out of the way. There's 2 big genres of movies I'm not a fan of. Witch movies and supernatural/possession movies. And if you've seen this movie at this point, you probably know where I'm going. Because when this movie starts out, and pretty much until we get to the Alex title card, we really have no fucking idea what's happening still. But once we get to Alex's part and we get everything explained to us, I was sitting in the theater going, oh, damn, that kind of sucks. Like, not even necessarily saying I didn't like the ending, but I'm also not saying I loved the ending either. I just didn't expect an insane witchy ending, and what I got was an insane witchy ending. What starts out as an almost crime thriller with a strange, ambiguous, supernatural subplot turns into an occult ritual witch movie, and I don't know what I wanted in place of it. I just know that that wasn't really it, but here's something that I'll say that a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of movie reviewers are not going to say. That's 1,000% my own personal bias, and I don't think it turned out badly or was a bad choice or was the worst ending of all time by any means. It's just my own personal take. I don't love movies like that. But either way, on to what I liked about the movie, everything else. The entire first 2/3 had me absolutely locked in, gripped to my seat. The basic gist of the movie, if you didn't catch it, is that 17 students from an elementary school class run away from home at 2:17 a.m., and then the rest of the movie is all the characters trying to figure out what the fuck happened to them. The movie is told through about 5 different title cards that go all the way to Alex, the only child from Justine's classroom that didn't run away, and takes us through about a 3-day-ish period in the life of these characters and how everything overlaps and fits together. The kids have been gone for about a month, I think, but what we see in the movie is about 1 to 3 days, I think, give or take. We start with Julie Garner's Justine, a character that I liked significantly more than her entire movie Royal Hotel, but she played such a fun, flawed protagonist here that I think she did an amazing job portraying the grief-stricken teacher who was giving into all of her vices and negative traits after a big trauma. She's so believable, and if you've ever been through a major event like this, everything she's done and the way she's acting is pretty par for the course. That's very deliberate, I think, because I saw Zach Cregger talking about how this movie is based around his grief of losing Trevor Moore, which also, R.I.P. Trevor Moore, one of the worst losses of our time, and I couldn't believe it when I first heard about it. And then we transition into the other major grief representation stand-in we have, Archer, who is played by Josh Brolin, aka Thanos. He's one of the parents of the kids that ran away, and he's representing the feeling of anger and obsession that we can get after a major trauma or loss. He wants answers, he wants closure, he wants to know what happened and how he could have been different to the person he lost, but he's misplacing his rage at whoever he thinks is deserving of it at that moment, and also giving into his vices by tagging Justine's car and fucking up the orders for his job site. Until he finally starts putting together what might be happening after a nightmare he has, followed by a small cameo by Justin Long again, who I can only assume is Zach Cregger's muse at this point. He reconciles with Justine and they make amends once they're attacked by Benedict Wong's Marcus, as we're shown another title card. I've never seen Wong in a movie besides the MCU movies, and I think he honestly does a great job here. He plays the voice of Reason character incredibly well, while still being caring and supportive, but stern when needed. Another person who definitely exists when losses and trauma happen in real life, which makes his eventual fate, which was definitely spoiled too much by the marketing in my opinion, even more tragic because I just want to see him eat hot dogs with his man, all 7 of them. But he kills his husband on their nice day off and becomes mind-controlled by Gladys to attack Justine with the piece of hair that was cut off her head while she was on the stakeout earlier at Alex's house. We then have Austin Abrams James, a homeless drug addict who absolutely steals the show. Austin Abrams is without a doubt one of the best actors we have in this generation, and for some reason, he's always just a supporting actor in everything he's in, even though he absolutely smokes everything that he's cast in. It's a shame that he and Paul mostly boil down to being turned into the namesake of the movie by the end. Weapons, they get turned into weapons, that's what I'm saying right there, do you get it? Last and almost certainly least, we have Alden Ehrenreich. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Alden Ehrenreich's Paul, who also was in Cocaine Bear. That's the only other movie I've seen him in. And he is actually a good guy, and he is pretty cool in Cocaine Bear. But his story essentially in this movie is parallel and intertwined with James, aside from ruining his life by cheating with Justine at the start, which flips what we think of him, because at the start you think he's a decent guy who's coming to be a supportive, friend of Justine, but it turns out he really just sucks, and if it wasn't for his fate, including James's death, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. He never gets any redemption, even started, because he just goes from being a character that is supposedly going to be a support person for Justine, to an asshole that's inept at his job, to a bigger asshole that's even more inept at his job, to an asshole that we feel nothing for when he's getting killed, besides anger for getting one of the best characters killed with him, i.e. James. But I will say, it is really funny in that one part when James does get killed, when Josh Brolin throws him down 7 times in a row, and every time he just keeps getting back up and screaming at him. That was a really good bit, and an otherwise super tense part. That's the other part of this movie that's pretty cool, is that it's a super tense and scary movie, but they have bits right in the middle of the funny, of the scary parts, and it works. It works really well. It doesn't take away from anything. It doesn't ruin the tension. I don't know. That's Zach Cregger's MO, is being able to take the tension off for 1 second, make you laugh, and then make it terrifying again. It's pretty crazy. But all in all, the characters here are absolutely incredible, and my favorite part of the movie was getting to know all of them and getting to see them interact and seeing the stories weave together after we get to the beginning and end of most of them from a different perspective. I just wish we got more of them, because the movie's pacing and editing is tight. It's incredible. Until we get to the Alex and Gladys witchy ending exposition dump, which just slows everything down massively and takes us away from the characters we've been falling in love with for an hour and a half. The incredibly long reveal answers the what, but at the cost of pace. The lore dump pulls us away from characters I care about and sticks us with essentially Laura and not as evil Oliver from Bring Her Back. Which, being said though, Amy Madigan is doing a great job as Gladys. I hated her so much, just like I did with Laura and Bring Her Back, as they're kind of similar characters, despite Laura being garbage at whatever ritual she was planning on doing to I think it's the blind girl and Bring Her Back. I don't remember her name. Gladys also has the same fate as AJ and Barbarian as the gored villain in the finale, once again returning to gore as a moral punctuation on wrongdoing that I alluded to earlier, which I also really wonder how they filmed that with the kids, because that shit was gnarly. It was substance ending level blood spraying everywhere. Fucking crazy. I don't know how they got away with that. Some other notable scenes I was super moved by are when Alex's mom comes out and cuts some of Justine's hair off when she's on that stakeout in the end of her title card story. That terrified me, the way she moves all fucked up, with no soundtrack. It was insane. It freaked me out. I took my phone out and took a note when I saw it, of how much it fucked me up. It was incredibly tense and frightening, and I loved it. And in the same vein where James discovers the kids, it's absolutely horrific when he goes down in the basement and they turn around at him with the still camera. It's just incredible. There's so much freaky soundtrackless shit in this movie that works so well and is actually scary. And while I talk about the shit that's actually scary, the whole vibe of the movie is intense and so scary despite the funny scenes and the comic relief at times I talked about earlier. It's edited in such a tense and frightening way. The dark scenes don't feel shot like that because that's how horror movies are made. It has to be dark. The darkness is it feels deliberately used to invoke the feeling of when you're a kid wandering around at night and you don't really know what you're looking at half the time. It's just scary and it's dark and it's weird. It's insanely effective and I really, really like it. It's also shocking to me that people are calling this a horror comedy, because I touched on before, just because there's 5 jokes and a few bits here and there, it doesn't make it a comedy. It's just not a miserable trauma fest that makes you feel bad the whole time like a movie like Hereditary does. It's a heavy premise, and the small amount of lightheartedness keeps it grounded and easy to digest for a regular audience and casual people going like me that just wanted to watch a movie at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. All in all, Weapons is a 4-star movie that's tense, scary, fun, a little funny at times, and for the most part sticks the landing. And despite the more negative review for Barbarian, I do think there's glimmers of greatness in it. And if you're a fan of maximum weird shit, you might even flip my ratings for the 2 movies. I just know for sure that I can't wait for what Zach Cregger has coming next. And here's my Letterboxd review for both movies. Here we go. So now I want to do a hard transition into our first sports segment of the week, the Hardwood Report. Now this week we're going to be talking about the players going into this season that have the most pressure. They have the most to prove. They have the most that they need to show us as fans and need to show themselves. And we're going to start out with SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And the first question I have written down here is, can he elevate the Thunder into consistent playoff contention? And, essentially what I mean by that is, do I think that the Thunder are going to be contenders to go back-to-back this year? I alluded to that a little bit last week when I was talking about teams to watch. And while I don't think that the Thunder are going to go back-to-back or that they're even really contenders this year, I think they're going to have a year like Cleveland had this last season. I do think that one of the things that we need to watch and one of the things that we need to see is if SGA can step into, he's already in a leadership role, but really carry how he is, carry the team basically, because he's averaging over 30 points. He was MVP last year. He really is carrying everything to do with the Thunder right now, and I want to see him bring the best out of the rest of the people on the team. I want to see him handle the expectations of the undisputed team leader. He has a target on his back. He is the free throw merchant. He's the foul guy. These teams are going to prepare to go against OKC in a way that's preparing for Shai to get a bunch of free throws. It's going to be like how the Chiefs prepared for Saquon Barkley and nothing else. People are going to prepare for SGA to foul bait and get 20 points a game in free throws. That's an overstatement, but you know what I mean. And I just think he has some of the most pressure going into the season. And my other question is if the Thunder supporting cast is going to step up around him. Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso, all those guys. Like I said last week, Jalen Williams didn't have the most amazing finals performance, and Chet Holmgren missed a lot of last season. But I just have to wonder if they're going to be able to step up around him and they're going to be able to be a more cohesive team. I know they're already a very cohesive and good team, but moving forward this year, I want to see it more. I want to see them do it better. I want to see them do it bigger. It would be really cool if they become an even funner team to watch, an even more fun team to watch, because at the moment I didn't watch much of the finals because they're not really a fun team to watch. They're a pretty by-the-numbers, good team, and SGA is just... he shoots a lot of free throws. It's not a fun type of game for me to watch. It slows the game down and makes them last 5 years to watch a game. But, I don't know. He was the first one I wrote down, SGA. I think he's got a lot of pressure going into this season. Next up, I have Luka Doncic, who's one of my favorite players. And the question that I really have here for him is, can he fully take charge and lead the Lakers to a championship? With an aging LeBron and adjusting to DeAndre Ayton at the center, how are the roles and the rotations going to work? Can he handle the Lakers' playoff pressure and media scrutiny in a big market team? That's what I'm wondering. Luka is going into this season after a season last year where after he got traded, he was definitely good. I'll never say that Luka Doncic wasn't good, but he was definitely overweight for an NBA player. You could see him. He was kind of getting pudgy. He didn't look great. He didn't have that many amazing games when the Lakers played the Celtics. I'm pretty sure Luka was on the team when they did that. It was just a waste of a game, essentially. It was over by halftime. And they have an aging LeBron who last season for the first time averaged less than 25 points a game, which is really crazy. I think it's the first time he hasn't done that since the early 2000s. And I don't know, I have to think that this season might be LeBron's last season, and they're going to make a really big push to try to get LeBron one more ring, and then they're going to pass the torch to Luka, and Luka is going to be the Lakers guy. They've made it very obvious that they're trying right now to build around Luka, and they're not trying to build around LeBron anymore. Bringing DeAndre Ayton in also as center, I don't know if that's a great idea. I think DeAndre Ayton is one of the most mid players in the entire NBA, and it feels like they just kind of needed a center that has the star power. And DeAndre Ayton is that. He's got the star power. He's one of the only people that I could name from before I was into basketball super heavy. I knew who DeAndre Ayton was. but not for good reason. He's not. It's like knowing Ben Simmons' name. Everyone talks about Ben Simmons coming to the Celtics. I don't want Ben Simmons to come to the Celtics. No, thank you. And I'm sure Lakers fans don't really want DeAndre Ayton to be the starting center for the Lakers, but I guess we're going to see how it goes. Maybe Luka's going to snap some shape into him. Luka has been getting in better shape. I've seen a lot of videos and pictures of him like over the offseason, and he is definitely getting it together, like body-wise. And I don't know. I would really, 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 really like to see Luka take charge of the Lakers and make them a dominating force next season. Maybe not be a first-round exit. I feel like that's the issue. I think maybe they were a second round this year. I don't remember. It'll be on the screen when I find out. But I'm pretty sure they were a first-round exit just like they were last year. And that really sucks. It really sucks. I want to see them get farther. They're a really fun team. And I really want to see Luka step up, you know? But next up, for the players that have the most pressure on them this upcoming season, I have Victor Wembanyama of the Spurs. And my biggest question for Wemby is, can he really be a true franchise leader? Is he the Spurs player that they drafted and he's going to usher in the golden age of the Spurs like I talked about last time we talked about the Spurs? He ended about midway. I think it was like around the All-Star break last season. He got that blood clot in his shoulder and he had to leave. He had to leave for the rest of the season. He didn't play the rest of it. And De'Aaron Fox had just gotten there when that happened. So we didn't really get to see much De'Aaron Fox and Wemby. And now we're going into a season where he is, on the offseason, he is training with Kevin Garnett. He's fucking like shaving his head with like Shaolin monks and getting even more locked in. He's talking shit to Karl Malone on Twitter. It's ridiculous. He's locking in to levels we've never seen locked in before for his junior year in the NBA. I don't know if you can call it his junior year because it's his third year, like because his senior wouldn't be his last year next year. But I don't know. I just want to see him step up and be a true franchise leader. And I think he's going to be able to do that, especially with the young core that's surrounding him. They've got Devin Vassell. They've got Stephon Castle. They just got Dylan Harper. You have De'Aaron Fox now. Chris Paul is leaving to go to the Clippers, which sucks. I would have liked to see Chris Paul bring like a level of veteran knowledge to the team that otherwise wouldn't really be there. But offseason's not over. We still might get someone else like that. And I don't know. I'm just super excited, and Wemby's going to have some of the most pressure on him than anyone else. And the last two people I want to talk about, it's two people instead of one when it comes to the Celtics. Jaylen Brown and Derek White. Essentially, I want to see, can they carry the team when Tatum is gone? Can they hold down the fort when the star player isn't there? Because there's a lot of games last season that if Jason Tatum wasn't there or he fouled out, you could kind of tell that the offensive flow of the team is kind of based around Jason Tatum. It's kind of based around him playing iso ball and driving up the middle, driving up the center of the court on transition, taking a three, taking a bunch of threes, and hopefully draining them, or maybe going in for a layup or a dunk. But the thing is, we've also seen glimmers of Jaylen Brown and Derek White leading the charge. Like Jaylen Brown in the end of playoffs, he was going crazy. Derek White with threes, he just makes them rain. It's insane. They're going to be, I think, the interchangeable faces of the Celtics while Jason Tatum is out. It's going to be like when you see the promos for the teams and they use like the star player for the promo. I think it's going to switch between Derek White and Jaylen Brown the entire season, and I just wonder if they're going to be enough to carry the team until Jason Tatum gets back, or if we're going to be a pretty mediocre team the entire season until Jason Tatum gets back. And I'm also just curious about the depth of the Celtics bench. Like, we've lost a lot of people. We lost Drew Holiday. We lost Kristaps Porzingis. We lost Drew Peterson. We lost J.D. Davison. We lost Al Horford. We've lost a lot of people, and I really wonder, there's a lot of young guys on the Celtics now. There's a lot of G-Leaguers that are coming up to the Celtics. There's a lot of rookies that are coming onto the Celtics. And I really wonder, like, our starting lineup, if it's going to be, like, for our center, if it's going to be, like, Amari Williams, or if it's going to be, I don't remember, Neemias Queta. I don't know why I'm forgetting about Queta and Xavier Tillman. either way, we don't really have a great center, and it's going to be weird seeing what happens after that and seeing where they go and how they work with Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and I think I saw Peyton Pritchard is going to be starting. I think Anthony Simons, they said, is going to be coming off the bench, which is a little bit insane, but I think he's earned it. Peyton Pritchard is a really good player, and he is more than capable of starting. I was saying all last season he should have been starting instead of Drew Holiday. So I'm kind of just excited to see that, and I'm excited to see what happens with the Celtics. And I think that Jaylen Brown and Derek White specifically have the most pressure going into the season on the Celtics. And now we're going to switch up the floor to the next segment that we have, sports-related, the Turf Report. And we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about players that have the most pressure going into this next season. And number one that I have written down here, I have Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs. I wonder how he's going to respond mentally after such a bad Super Bowl, and if he can reclaim his MVP-level dominance. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to. I don't know if the season's going to be crazy for the Chiefs, because I said last episode that we talked about sports that I think the Chiefs are going to have a mid-record coming up this season, but then I realized that they're not going into a rebuilding period like I thought they were. They still have Chris Jones on defense and George Karlaftis. They have Travis Kelce looking like he really wants to have a comeback season. And Patrick Mahomes wasn't that great all last season. It fell in his lap, the wins that they had. And then he had an abysmal Super Bowl performance, but I just got the notification today that apparently he's making deep passes. He's doing crazy shit. He's coming back, and they're predicting that he's going to rebound this year. And it makes me wonder if we're going to see another super dominant Chiefs season, that they're going to end up like maybe even going to the Super Bowl again. If we're going to have like 4 Chiefs Super Bowls in a row, that's going to be fucking nutty, but it might be possible and it might happen. I don't know. And the next player we're going to be talking about today is Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. And the only main questions I have for him is there pressure to outdo last year's MVP caliber performance? And can he maintain his consistency against top defenses? And it's kind of like what I talked about last time with Patrick Mahomes last week, or 2 weeks ago when we talked about this. The players that I'm talking about for the Turf Report are kind of going to be the same as the teams I talked about, because honestly, in the NFL right now, I think the top 3 teams to watch are going to be the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens. And I think the players that have the most pressure going into next season, of course, because of that, are going to be Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. And I think one of the main issues that Josh Allen needs to overcome is that everyone is going to be expecting another MVP caliber season this season. Last season, a lot of people think that Lamar Jackson should have gotten it, but I agree. Josh Allen was the MVP of last season. I messed up last time and I didn't mention the other weapons that he has on offense, like with James Cook, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakur. I forgot about them, but they're integral to the Bills' success, but not as much as Josh Allen. Josh Allen is like the SGA of the Bills, and I think that he's going to have another super dominant season this season, but it's scary to think if he's going to be able to, like I said last time, if he's going to be able to get past the Chiefs, because getting past really good defenses like the Chiefs, it's his main issue. But I feel like that might be the main thing that he's trying to figure out during the offseason and going into the season. So, I don't know. He might be able to get it. I'm rooting for a Bills Super Bowl. I would really like that. Bills or the Ravens, honestly. But, I don't know. We'll see. We will see with Josh Allen. And the last player that we're going to talk about, like I just said, I did spoil it. It is going to be Lamar Jackson. I think he's got a lot of pressure because a lot of people want to see him be an MVP. A lot of people think he was snubbed last year for MVP. And like I said, I think Josh Allen should have been MVP, but Lamar did have the numbers. He had just elite numbers last season. He was my quarterback in fantasy, and he literally every single week he carried it. And I'm going to be so pissed this year if I don't get him again. But, I mean, essentially the biggest question for Lamar is this year going to be a Ravens championship run year? And that's another thing I talked about a couple weeks ago, is this going to be the year that the Ravens actually lock in and they're able to get it done? Because last year, honestly, if Mark Andrews hadn't dropped that one right at the end, that pass right at the end for the touchdown, we don't know what could have happened. We could have had a Ravens Super Bowl, and they could have finally gotten it. But it's like I said before, when it comes to the Ravens, it's not a question of, are they going to get the Lombardi. It's when are they going to get it? And I think it's going to be either this season or next season. I think that that's one of the things on Lamar's mind every time that he does anything in the world. I think he's thinking about that, and he wants to do that. I think he's a lot less worried about being MVP because everyone just knows he's a good caliber player. Like, he doesn't need that to prove anything. He wants, like, an actual Super Bowl ring. And the real question is if his supporting cast on offense can do that for him as well. We saw Mark Andrews drop that super important pass. Justin Tucker's not going to be there anymore, which thank God, because he's a garbage kicker. I hope that the next kicker they get is actually good. He can't make sure that the injuries stay okay on offense, but they had a lot of issues last year with, I'm blanking on his name right now, but I'll put it in post. Isaiah Likely. He had a lot of issues last year. I think that's who I'm thinking of. But either way, as long as they keep their injuries good, I think they need to pick up a couple more defensive players and get a little bit better on defense. I think that the Ravens are going to do good, and I think Lamar is a really good captain for that. I think Lamar is going to be able to push them towards the Super Bowl even farther, because Lamar realistically can run the offense by himself. It's good that he has Derrick Henry, but we've seen Lamar pass to himself, literally. So he doesn't really need much on offense. It's more that the Ravens really need to get defense back together, and he needs that when the wide receivers and the tight ends and everyone, they need to be ready for Lamar and not drop important passes. Shout out Mark Andrews. Sorry to bring that up again. But that's all I've got for you today for the Turf Report and the Hardwood Report and the episode in general. I hope you enjoyed the ride as much as I enjoyed the drive. And I also want to announce and warn my non-sports fan listeners that next week will be a special sports-only podcast. No new movies, no new albums, so we're just going to be predicting and discussing the win totals for every team in the NBA and the NFL. So I'm super excited for that, and it's going to be a long one. We're also most likely going to be following up the next week after that with a double review of the new Hot Mulligan and Sabrina Carpenter album, because they're both going to be coming out that same week, I'm pretty sure. And that's going to round out the summer season of Sunday Skate Hour. So stick around, because there's a lot of fun stuff coming up. As always, I want to thank everyone for being here, for listening and supporting. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. I reply to all the comments, and be a kind person to every creature under the sun. I'm your host, Andrew, a.k.a. Funeral Burgundy, signing off.